What's up, family? Thank you for tuning in to the DreamNation podcast. My name is Casanova. I'll be your host, and I'm excited to be bringing to you entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers from around the world. Stay locked in with us because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Nation? We are back again, and today we have a phenomenal episode for you. If you do not know who the Budgetnista is, you will after this episode. So I'm excited. We actually had to reschedule this one because we wanted to make sure that all of the value was there. And so without further ado, you want to go ahead and say what's up to the Budgetnista, and Miss Tiffany Aliche, do you want to say what's up to Dream Nation?
Hey, Dream Nation. I love Dream Nation because I call my tribe Dream Catchers. So, you know, the dreams link up.
They link up. I love it. And we're going to make sure that we get those dreams into motion after this episode. So I always like to make sure that we give the proper introduction. And you've been featured across the biggest publications across the world. You've been doing this for about 10 years now. So you're not new to this game. But I always like to think...
You're like, I'm not new to this, but I'm true to this.
But true to this. I love it. And so I always like to think of entrepreneurs as superheroes. Why? Is because we're constantly flying around the world. We're putting on a cape and we're trying to solve problems, whether they're ours or other people's. And so before you became this superhero, before you became this entrepreneur and featured everywhere and helping thousands of other people, take it back to when you were just a young girl and tell me, who is Tiffany Aliche?
So when I was little, I was always someone who liked to be helpful. I was a bit of a busybody and a nosy-wosy and bossy. And because I was like, no, this is the better way. And I realized that translated into being a teacher. And so I knew as a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. And I actually ended up, before the Budgetnista, being a teacher for 10 years. And so, but you know what's so strange? I think about this from time to time. I remember distinctly riding my bike, and I lived in Roselle, New Jersey at the time. And I can like literally see it. Roselle was a very small town, like 2 square miles. And I just remember at the end of the street used to be like these big, huge, I don't know if they were maple trees, but they would turn yellow during the fall. And I just remember like on my bike, my banana seat bike with the big old handlebars sitting under that tree, and something coming to me and saying that people worldwide are going to know your name. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
I had to be younger then because we moved from Roselle when I was 9. So I had to be like maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. But I remember distinctly feeling that fully, people worldwide are going to know your name. And I was just like, okay.
Right.
Like, you know,
and manifested it.
Yes. And then too, when I was younger, every time that I would go and hang out with my friends, if they had a grandparent, especially one year in particular, it kept happening over and over that somebody's grandma would come up to me and say, baby, you're going to be a rich woman one day. And yes. And I remember being like, okay. And so, yeah, but that would happen over and over and over. And so sometimes those things come back to me. And so, yeah. So I think Tiffany Aliche is a teacher, is a giver, is a sharer, and is a learner.
Got it. I love it. And so what I love the most about that is it sounded like not only you, but those around you were always planting seeds inside of you that you could be whatever it is that you wanted to be.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's very, very big because in especially the Black community, you feel like you're an outcast a lot of the times. If you got big dreams or if you're thinking crazy thoughts, people are like, listen, no, you just need to work on going to school, getting your GED. Right? Yep. Or something
or
like
just
that.
Getting a basic job, you know, like that's it. Like you can, you know, go ahead, you could dream big, but dream big means working for somebody else.
Absolutely. So where did it come from for you that you had the audacity to say, I'm not going to work for somebody else? Were your parents business owners, or what did that look like?
So my dad was an accountant and a CFO of a small nonprofit, and my mom's a nurse, since they're both since retired. And so I would see my dad do small business ventures on the side with his friends. And my mom and my dad had an investment group with their friends. This is before everybody was kind of doing it, but they met up once a month. My aunts and uncles would come to the house. They would drink, eat food, talk about finances, you know, but entrepreneurship wasn't, I'm African. I was born in New Jersey, but my parents were both born and raised in Nigeria. So entrepreneurship wasn't, although Africans are very entrepreneurial, meaning like if you go to anybody's market, you see 6-year-olds selling their plants, selling their vegetables, but it was entrepreneurial by necessity, not by design, not by dream. It was just like, yeah, I sell things because I gotta eat.
It was
Exactly. So it wasn't, and honestly, I actually don't consider myself, I'm very risk adverse. You would not think so because of entrepreneurship, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur. But what happened was the 2008, 2009 recession had me rethink what risk was. Because I graduated college. I had my bachelor's in business, and I figured I'd just work for some corporate America job. And then afterwards, after graduating, I realized I really hated all my internships and I really wanted to do something where I felt fulfilled. So I became a teacher. Nothing safer than a teacher.
Right.
The recession hits, right? I'm like, oh, recession hits. I'm not worried about it because teachers don't lose their jobs. So that's on y'all. 2008, I'm good. 2009, at the end of 2009, they tell us that our school is closing. And I was like, wait, what? And everyone, unfortunately, has to get let go. And in literally the span of a few weeks, I lost everything. I lost my job. I was in basically pre-foreclosure. I was in a relationship for like 6-7 years. I thought we were going to get married. We broke up. I lost everything. And that's when the switch flipped about what did safety really mean? Because I'm risk adverse.
Right.
And I said, you know what sounds risky? Having my whole future in the palm of someone else's hands. I'm not going back to work for nobody else. That's what made me an entrepreneur, is because it actually seemed less risky to bet on Tiffany than to bet on somebody else to look after me. And so that's why I started my business.
I love it. Now, for a lot of people, they're in that exact situation right now, right?
Yeah.
They've lost their job. Maybe they're getting a little bit of unemployment, but they know that that's going to stop one day, but they don't know how to take that action step because they don't feel like they have the resources. So my question to you is, was there a resource that you can remember reading a book, reading a blog, catching a YouTube channel? What was that for you? Or maybe it was another friend who had just went off and started their business. What was it for you that allowed you to say, look, if they could do it, I could do it?
So the first book that I read that really made me say, was 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. Every entrepreneur needs to read the 4-Hour Workweek.
Yeah.
And he just really broke down, how do you maximize your time and your energy? So minimal energy for maximum return, right? And I remember I was actually reading 4-Hour Workweek when the kids were sleeping during nap time. I was a preschool teacher. So I was reading that book because I knew there was something in me. There was like, there's more. Although I love teaching, but I was like, there's something else. So I was reading that book. I remember being like, taking notes. And so that book kind of expanded, like, there's something beyond what I currently know. Something else that helped a lot too, especially when things got really hard, was Will Smith is like one of my go-to mentors. I don't know the man. I've never met him. I likely will never meet him, but he don't know. That's my
never say mentor. Never. We're going to make it happen.
Right. And so, but Will Smith, if you go to YouTube and type in Will Smith wisdom, people have collected, like Will Smith will do interviews about his movies or whatever, and then it'll be 2 minutes where he gives you your entire life. You're like, what? And so when things, especially in the beginning, when I didn't know which way to go, which way to turn, I would type in Will Smith wisdom and listen. And just listen. That man would be dropping bombs over Baghdad. Okay.
Right.
And it was just amazing. So that was another resource that I really leaned into. Another resource I leaned into then too, it's this book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. An amazing book. Although it's a fiction story, I feel like anyone chasing a dream should read it. It's just a story about a young boy who kind of is like figuring out his purpose and his what his true dream is, and how and the way that he comes to find it is so indicative of what it truly looks like to live out, what your purpose and dreams are. It's just like, the book is such a great reset. I read it every year just to reset. So those are the 3 resources in the beginning as I was scrambling around. Because honestly, I didn't know how to do anything. Although I had gone to school for business, I remember my undergrad, my concentration was marketing. And so I remember there was a class where it was like a class about how to write a business plan, and I dropped out because it was hard. I'm like, I ain't doing all that. So I didn't bring with me all this business. Yes. And so all I knew for sure is I knew how to teach. That's the one thing, 100,000%. I said, you've been a teacher for 10 years, because I started teaching when I was like 21. So by the time I started my business at like 30, I was like, okay, you've been a teacher basically for 10 years, you know how to teach. And so that was the foundation that I built everything else on, because I was like, okay, you have this strong foundation of teaching. So in the beginning of business, I said, okay, I'm going to teach individuals. So one-on-one, if you could just give me $50, if you could just give me $75, if you could just give me $100. So that was the initial like teaching financial education, because it was post-recession. Everyone was struggling and I was struggling, but less because of this financial foundation. My father as a CFO taught my 4 sisters and I about finances at home, right? How to budget, how to save, how to fix your credit. So I had that financial education knowledge, but I also had the ability to teach. And so the beginning, it was this one-on-one, like so many entrepreneurs, one hand-to-hand, one-on-one. And I remember literally, I used to Google and read everything I could find about marketing and growth. And I remember reading an article about scaling. I'm like, well, what's that? They were like, well, that's how you take your business or whatever from one level to the next. And I was like, okay, well, I want to make at least $2,000 a month. If I'm charging $100 a person, that's 20 people a month. Dang, can I really do that? That doesn't scale? Well, how do I scale if I want to make $1,000 a month? So instead of one-to-one, what about one to few? So then my mentor at the time said I should look for contracts. And so I emailed everyone I could think of, because I did a lot of volunteer work. I emailed all the people I volunteered for, said, hey, it's me, Tiffany. I volunteered at your organization in some capacity, teaching financial education or sometimes just feeding the homeless. But I teach financial education. I would love to do so for your organization. Someone from the United Way reached back out. I ended up writing curriculum for them. Because when I was 26, I got my master's in education. I thought I was going to become a principal. Hated it, so I wasn't. But I did learn how to write curriculum. And so I leaned into the skills that I had, right? So I wrote the curriculum for the United Way and taught the 6-week course. So now we're one to few. I'm a teacher in the classroom once again. The United Way paid me, I want to say they started with $300 a class. So all of a sudden, you know, what I used to have to work with 3 people with, I can make it within that same 2 hours, I can make with these people who are sitting here. I was like, okay, now we're cooking with grease. And I convinced the United Way to let me do a 6-week series. I was like, oh, I have a 6-week series. Who had a 6-week series? I made it up though. I was like, I can make one up. Right. And so I was like, ooh, 6-week series, 6 times 3 is $1,800. Boom, bam. Okay. Now one to few. Then I convinced them, how about I do my series on Tuesdays and Thursdays? So now all of a sudden I'm making $600 a week. I'm like, boom, bam. Okay. But so that was one to few. And I thought about scale again. How many of these series do I have to do to make $10,000 in a month? So Jim Carrey has this great story about how he wrote himself a check.
Yeah.
When he was like dead broke, right? And he would take that check out and look at it. I think it was like a $10 million check or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote myself a $10,000 check. Like, I'm gonna make $10,000 in 1 month. So setting goals is so critically important. I keep notebooks where I set goals about how much I need to make or what I want to, especially my financial goals, right? And so I set this goal of like, I want to make $10,000 in a month. So I was like, well, dang, how many United Way series do I have to do to get to $10,000 a month? That don't scale.
Right.
You know? So then I started thinking, okay, one-to-one doesn't scale, but it's a good place to start because it helped me hone my skills. Right. One to few doesn't scale, but it was a good place to start because it helped me hone my skills for a wider audience. It's one thing to tailor something for an individual person, but like if I'm teaching a classroom, I had to learn how to teach where the general public could understand. So I learned that there, but still didn't scale. I said, what about one to many? What's one to many? I started reaching out to my friends who had sisters and brothers in college. It was like, how does that speaker that comes, how do they speak? One of the gentlemen, he went to my friend Ladune, his brother was actually president of the junior or something class at King University. And he said, oh, we get speakers. Basically, we choose. I said, well, how y'all choose? He's like, we just find them. I said, well, find me. You know, he was like, okay. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait. He said, the way it works is that colleges, they work out the finances ahead of time and It trickles down to the kids and then the kids make the decision. So I was like, well, let me start going to school because I remember King University, they paid me $1,700 to speak. So now I'm like, oh, one to many. Right. So I don't have to work, like 3 or 6 weeks for the United Way to make that. I can do this with okay. So I started to do more colleges and universities and things like that. So I was like, okay, one to many, it's way more people, same time, tax on me, but way more money back. I said, okay. So now, and then I made my first $10,000 in a month. I was like, yes, I did it. And then I started thinking, well, I wonder, well, how do people make like $1 million? What does that look like? Right. So I was like, okay, it's not one-to-one. It's not one-to-few. It's not even one-to-many, although there are some speakers who make $1 million speaking. But honestly, I had friends who were making like $500,000 and they were speaking 300 days out of 365 years. And I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. Right. So then what does one to infinite look like, Tiffany? Infinite. And by then I had launched my first literature challenge, was a free online resource that I still launch every single year. And my goal was to sign up 10,000 women for that challenge. And we signed up 10,000 women. It took me a full year to convince 10,000 people to join. But by the end of the year, so we had 10,000 do the original live challenge. It's an email course. It's a month-long email course. And by the end of that month-long email course, people had told their friends and I automated it. And by the end of that year, we had 20,000 people signed up. And then next year, when I launched the savings version of that literature challenge, we had 50,000 people by the end. So it was like, okay. So right. By the time, so it was like a light bulb went on. I was like, these literature challenges are digital. That's like an infinite number of people, like whatever, meaning like, there's 7 billion people in the world, but that's basically not technically an infinite number of people, but basically there's no limit to how many people I can reach if I'm using the internet, if I'm using online. What does that look like? So I asked my audience what they wanted. And after really extracting what they wanted, it really sounded like they wanted an online school. So I built an online school. And after that was, I want to say like 6 years into the Budgetnista, 6 or 7 years into the Budgetnista. And within its first year, it made $1 million in a year, the first year and a half. And now just 2 months ago, we made our first $1 million in a month. That's one to infinite. And so now we're 8-figure year business. But do you see how from one-on-one, like you can give me $50 to help you with this budget? Right.
Start where you are with what you have.
So one to few, but also the key is that I think, especially for women too, is that you have to be intentional about the growth. I could have just said, I wish somebody would come on and get me and see how talented I am. No, I was like, one-to-one, I'm doing this, but how do I scale? How do I actively participate in my growth? Okay, well, I could do this one to few. Okay, well, how do I actively participate in the next level? It's not just going to fall into your lap, because I have a business like so many women's businesses that are that's service centric, right? We do a lot of good. We give a lot away for free. And so a lot of women are in that zone where they're like service, give. And I believe in that. I would say the majority of what we do, honestly, we don't get paid for. But so many women and new entrepreneurs get stuck there, those who want to be of service, as if you can't help good people do good work and make good money, right? And so I have to have a service plan, which we do, but I also have to have a business financial plan, which we do. So that is equally as important. And so those two things, I'm always mindful. I was like, how can we do as much good work as possible? But also too, like, what's the financial plan behind this? How are we going to monetize the pieces that we can monetize? So you have to consciously participate in that growth. Even when it seems impossible, I know people don't, it's like when I read the Tim Ferriss book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and by then when I finished, by the time I was really going through it, I had lost my job already. I was sleeping like on my sister's couch and for a year. And I remember writing down, he has this activity that you do that you have to write down the life that you really want, lifestyle design. And then you have to ask yourself how much I think each component of my life would like to get this done will cost. Yeah. I remember one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to give to my parents. I wanted to retire them. There's all these things I wanted. So I wrote down everything. And then I wrote down how much I thought each of those things would cost. And it said that I had to make $300,000 a year. That's what I added up to. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping on my sister's couch. My house has already been foreclosed upon. I don't have any income. I'm scraping just to get people to give me $50 to sit down with them for 2 hours for a budget. And meanwhile, my dreams on paper say it's $300,000 a year. I remember looking at it like, okay, we got a hill to climb up. But I was just like, I kind of put it to the side. And I was just like, okay. It was discouraging, but I was just like, this is what you said that you want. I put it to the side, but now, me as Tiffany personally, I make 6 figures a month, which is so crazy and me writing that was maybe 7-8 years ago. in 7 years. Right. I went from sister's couch to, I hope this person got my 50 when I see them, to 7 figures in a month. I'm not talking about 7 figures I'm 6 figures in a month. I'm not talking about as a business. I'm talking about me as Tiffany, my take home pay. You know?
I got a couple, man, you just dropped so much value there. And thank you for being so transparent. And I'm inspired already, right? And that makes me think that I haven't been writing down my goals defined enough, right? Because I mean, I'm doing well, but when you talk about the manifestation of just putting it out there of, you know, $1 million in a month or even $1 million in a year, you're like, man, I can do that. I want to do that. But what's the plan on it? But the first thing that I want to know is, what was your biggest struggle throughout all of this time? Because you've talked about the last 7, 8 years where you've really had it.
My biggest was, I would say my biggest struggle, honestly, was believing in myself when there was no, like right now, you know, folks know, like a lot of people know the brand, like, oh yeah, go Budgetnista, go. But that wasn't so in the beginning. I remember going to networking events where people would be talking to me, but be like, you know, looking beyond me to the next important person, because obviously I wasn't it. And it was, how do you keep that motivation when there are other people, like my parents were like, what are you doing? Budgetnista, get a job. My parents are Nigerian. So they're like, what is happening? Right. So I'm like, I have a business, sleeping on the couch. Meanwhile, you know, I have a business. After I moved from the couch to renting a room, I had in my 20s, I bought a whole condo by myself. And now I'm renting a room at 30, you know? And so like, it's a blow to your ego and your self-confidence. But there was just something in me that said that I'm not going back. Like, I mean, I would feel overwhelmed. I used to call it being on the edge. So me and my best friend, we talk about like, you know, girl, I need you to talk me off the edge, because it was like basically jumping and saying, I can't do this, you know? But the thing that brought me back time and time again is that as much as I feel like I can't do this, I can't do that. Right. I cannot, dude. It was the thing. I was like, I'm not going back to nobody's classroom, nobody's school, the safest place in the world. And for you to tell me one day, despite all the work, the education, how many kids I taught to read, no one's going to tell me it's done for you, Tiffany. I was like, so that's what really, it was like a fire in my belly that was like, girl, this is hard, but there's nothing harder than that. You want this sour feeling in the pit of your stomach, that at any time someone could come and take away your hopes and dreams, that it could all be washed away. Girl, no. So this room, it might be hard living in this room. It might be hard living on this couch. It might be hard. Some people don't have your money, but it's even harder to participate in a dream that's fake. You know, at least you can bet on you. At least you know what it is, you know? Right. And so, yeah, believing in myself and keeping the motivation up. I didn't always have it. Honestly, I didn't. But time and time again, I'd be like, well, what is the alternative? The alternative is to live less than a less than life. What is the alternative? Is to go back to what's seemingly safe for it to be snatched. Like imagine if I had gone back and now here we are again. Right. In the similar situation. I would have been like, oh my goodness, I knew I should have made a different move. I'm not backing out. It's a recession now, but guess what? It's a different Tiffany. The recession met me different. Like, oh, you picked on me when I was 30. Oh, that's cute. Now that I'm 40, right. I got these hands for you. I'm all the way good. Right? I am debt free. This house I live in. Oh, you thought you was gonna take it like last time? No, paid off. This house is paid off. We don't got no mortgage on this house. Right? Like, it. You know, like so. Yeah, that was the hardest part. Keeping motivated when there was nothing to motivate me. Not if you're only chasing the profit, because there's going to be a long time before you make any money. So you have to figure out what's going to motivate you to keep going when the money is not there. And it was the service for me. And it was I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it.
I love it. And you said, so a couple of things that my takeaways out of that is really success is hard, failure is hard. You got to choose your hard. Yep. Right. Like that's what it really comes down to. And something else that buddies of mine and I always say is failure weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you didn't want to, just like you said, go into this other one and say, I wish that I would have. Because that's so much harder to come back from, because you know that time is your most valuable asset. Yes. And that's the one thing you can't get back. You can go back and get that $10,000. You can go back and get the condo, but you can't go back and get that time where you're like, man, I spent these last 3 years knowing that I was meant for bigger, which is something that you said earlier as well. And so I love to hear you say that. For somebody out there that's listening right now, they got a lot of debt.
And for a while, a lot of people come to you, not for somebody, for a lot of people, they got a lot of debt. They got student loan debt, they got car debt, they got mortgage debt, they got a lot of debt. Why a lot of people come to you is because you've been the budget expert. You've shown people how they can really get their finances in order and then start to go after their business or whatever else. But I heard a video where you were talking specifically about, should you be paying off debt first or should you be investing first? And so for a lot of people, that's a question. What's your answer to that?
So my answer is that it depends on the kind of debt. So I have this mantra that debt-free doesn't equal wealth, right? Because it just doesn't. You can be debt-free. You can owe no one. You know, I always like poor Roman, who's my nephew, he's 4. And so I'm just be putting his business out there in the street. I'm like, Roman is debt-free and Roman is broke. He was just over here yesterday, broke, just eating my food, playing with the toys I bought him. Roman is broke. He don't bring no finances to the table. And yet Roman doesn't have a car note, student loans, a mortgage. Roman is debt-free. So then why is he not rolling the dough? Because debt-free don't equal wealth, right? And so what that means is this. I don't want you to misconstrue that I don't think you should pay down debt. Absolutely. I am completely debt-free. I own 2 homes. I have no student loan debt. My husband and I each have our own cars. They're paid off. We paid off my parents' house last year. So we are debt-free on top of debt-free on top of debt-free. So I believe in debt freedom, but I believe in debt freedom as a result of growing wealth, right? Not as the goal itself. It is a goal. It's not the goal, right? And but here's what I mean. So the first thing I did was I paid off I was aggressive. So as I was building the Budgetnista, kind of like with little money as possible, but I was aggressive in paying off my credit card debt. That's important because credit card debt is expensive debt. It's usually double-digit interest rate. That's why it's expensive debt. So 20, 28%, 16%, 10%, meaning that the reason why you want to pay off your high interest rate debt aggressively before you start investing in wealth is that it's unlikely that you're going to be able to make more than that debt cost you. So if my credit card debt is 28%, in order for me to offset the cost of my credit card debt, I have to make 28% in business or investing. It's not as likely.
Right.
But if my student loan debt is 5%, it is very likely that in the market or in my business or whatever, that I can get a 5% return. So it means that I would be paying the minimum to my student loan debt, like still pay it, set it, automate it, but I'm going to be putting most of my energy into my business or the market because I can out earn the loss of what that debt's costing me. And so I would say typically it's around the 7% mark. So because on average, the market yields 7 to 8% a year, right? So any debt that costs you more than 7 to 8%, you might want to be a little bit more aggressive on it. Any debt that's going to cost you less than 7%, so 6% or less, then I would be paying it, but I would be giving it its minimum, maybe plus a little bit, and then putting my energy elsewhere. But now you have to be disciplined because if you're going to pay the minimum plus just a little bit to that debt and then trick up your money on foolishness, then you're going to have debt and then nothing growing here. It's only if you're going to be committed to learning and growing your wealth, because in so doing, then you're able to put money toward that debt in a concrete way. I'll give an example. So I paid off I had $35,000 worth of credit card debt because of some scam. So I was really aggressive with paying that off. And then I was going to get aggressive with paying off my student loan debt, but a light bulb went on. I said, Tiffany, it took you almost 4 years to pay off this $35,000 debt. This is when I was like, living hand to mouth, starting the Budgetnista. Right. It was, so I'm like, it took you a long time. Your student loan debt is $50,000. So $35,000 took you 4 years almost. So am I not going to get to the Budgetnista for another 5, 6 years? Oh, heck no. And my student loan debt was like 5% interest. And I said, you know what? I didn't pay the minimum because the minimum was a few $100s a month. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it back in forbearance. This is not for everybody, but this is what I did. I'm going to put it back in forbearance and I'm going to put my energy toward and my money toward growing the Budgetnista. Because the debt is not accumulating, the interest is not accumulating on my debt super rapidly because the interest rate is so low on my student loan debt. So for 2 years, I put everything I had into the Budgetnista. I mean, everything as far as like my time, my energy into growing this business. And at the end of 2 years, I was able to not only pay off my student loan debt with one check, Then a year after that, I was able to buy this house with one check, renovate this house, 6 figures, one check, pay off my parents' house with one check, purchase my car with one check. My husband purchased his car with one check. And some people are like, well, that's easy because you married. Be clear. What I make in 1 month is double what he makes in a year. Okay. So it's not because people will tell you like, it's because, that's because you had, no. I mean, I created a financial life for myself long before I met him. We're actually newly married. I got married in my late 30s. So you're able to do this on your own. Is it harder if you have children? Yes. Because people always be like, sometimes what worries me when I share my story is that people will use it to say, oh, that's why. Because I can't do that. And you're right. You're right. Because you have already told yourself that there's nothing I could do for you. But I listen to Will Smith. I am not a Hollywood movie star. I don't live in wherever he lived. And yet I can listen to Will Smith's wisdom and take the components that are for me and to use them to grow myself. That's why I challenge people to do that. When people are telling their story, it's their story, but it doesn't mean there's not something in there for you. You can use their story to discourage yourself, or you can use their story to encourage you. Well, did you have kids? Well, my parents had 5, and yet somehow they came here from Africa with nothing, and college educated 5 girls and live in a beautiful home. So what you're looking for an excuse as to why? I mean, you can find every excuse in the world, or you can find an excuse for the yes. I don't want to live my life full of no's. I don't. Because it doesn't benefit anyone. Okay, you win the I Can't Olympics. Yay, you can't. Your life is less. Like what is the parade you're trying to throw for yourself? I want you to have. Don't look for the like can't be me. Look for the although this part of her life is different, this part I see myself in that. I could do it too.
That's one of the best, I guess, sayings or wisdom that I ever got from one of my mentors. And he said, you know what? If you argue for your limitations, guess what? You get to keep them.
Yep.
Right? If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And so that was something to me. And I was like, oh man. And the reality of it is just like the 4-Minute Mile by Benjamin Bannister, right? Where he broke that 4-minute mile, but it was because at the end of the day, he didn't put any limitations on himself. And I think that kids are the greatest. Like I got my daughter right now, she's 2.5, and everything she can do it all. I mean, she could cook spaghetti. Obviously she can't, but I can do. And then she's got to go through it. And then she has no problem with saying, can you help me? Like, but because we get these emotions that all of a sudden we're like, oh man, I'm going to look bad, but we had to try it ourselves first. And then you ask for help, because at the end of the day, people don't ever care, but we let these small beliefs in our head tell us that we're not capable of something. And at the end of the day, it's the people, just like what we say, DreamNation, those of us who dare to dream while the rest of the world settles, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who stand to be trailblazers and change makers. And I think over your last 7-8 years, you've clearly proven that. And just because you had that mindset. So I love that. For you, how much has real estate been a factor in your wealth building? Like, do you focus on real estate, or are you still a big advocate of making sure that you're heavy into the stock market, or what's that look like for you? And how would you specifically advise other people who are brand new to this thing? They're not trying to be an expert, but they're just like, okay, I got a little bit of money I need to invest here. What do you say?
So I say, well, one, you want to put when it comes to investing in the thing that you're willing to put the energy into learning about. So when I first started, I was like, ain't nobody interested in stocks. Bye. I'm not, it seems boring. I don't know. Right. And then real estate took to more money than I was willing. I was like, I don't have money for real estate, but business, there was just something about business that I really took to. And I was willing to put the time and the energy and the funds toward business. So that's where I grew my base. But it doesn't have to be that. I know plenty of people who made money with real estate, plenty of people who made money with stocks. You have to figure out, where does your interest lie? Because that's where you're going to put the work into. It's not going to feel forced, and it's going to keep you interested. And so the large part of my wealth that I've grown has been in business. And it's only just recently that I'm like, so when it came to like stocks, I was like, oh, okay, as it relates to like retirement, things like that. So it was very like, just like let me get the bare foundation of my retirement account is funded. But now I'm getting into it just a little bit more, because I'm like, okay, I have a lot more passive income to kind of play with. So I've been taking courses on my own. Like one of my friends, Tila, has a course called Trade Your 9 to 5 that I really like. And then real estate has really been in the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years. I was my husband is a super for the city where we live. And I was like, bro, all of our friends call you to come check out their new real estate that they bought to see if it's a good buy, to see why are we not doing that for ourselves? You know,
Right.
He's going to retire fairly early. The good thing about, there's something to be said, you know, people always, I believe in entrepreneurship, but there's also something to be said for having a job, you know, a regular job. So his job is great because the insurance is like, you can't purchase this level of insurance. You can, but it was going to be very pricey.
Right.
And he's fortunate in that because he works for the state, he's one of the few people left that still has a pension, right? So, and to me, the pension part is not what we care about because we make plenty, but it's the insurance that he gets to take with him after 25 years of service. And for him, that's age 46. So that's incredible that we can be insured up for the rest of our lives. You understand like what that means at 80 years old, not have to come out of pocket for insurance? It's worth its weight in gold. Right. So for him, yeah, we're investing in real estate because that's something after moving beyond where he works now, that's where he wants to lean into. And so we bought our first investment property recently.
I got it. I love it. And so start with where you are, start with what you feel like you can put the most energy into because it's going to be tough, right? Everything's hard. Stocks are hard. There's no get rich quick. But if you know that you got the energy and you can put in the effort, that's where you'll come out ahead. And then you can always diversify and go into one of the other two or three or whatever else afterwards. One question though that I have, and this is a question that comes up to me often, is were you already pretty successful before you and your husband got together?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that is because you talked about in the beginning security, right? You can't put your security into a job. You got to bet on you. But then your husband works on the other side, right? Where he really has that security for whatever reasons that he's comfortable with. So for a lot of people that want that entrepreneurship, for you, was it an easy? Do you feel like it was a lot easier because you were already a successful entrepreneur than if you would have been just trying to get your business off the ground and he's working a 9 to 5 and yet you're trying to figure it all out? Because for a lot of people, them and their spouses already had these 9 to 5s and they want to create a program like Budgetnista, but then they're like, well, I don't think my spouse will approve of this. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think that my husband and I like talk a lot about our dreams to figure out what is it that we're both wanting. And it was important to me that because I've had partners before, like not, you know, not guys that we didn't get married, but I had partners before that honestly weren't with it. They were not interested in me growing like my first like boyfriend in college. I just knew we were going to get married, but there was like this pit in my stomach because I didn't even know I was building something, but I just knew that there was something in me. So I used to work on at night, working in the morning.
Right.
And I found myself sneaking to work on stuff because he would be like, you know, you making dinner? Or like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, wait, like literally, like I was cheating. I was cheating on my drink with my dreams, you know?
Right.
And that's why I was like, in my 20s, I was like, oh, hell no, girl, this ain't it. This is not it. So, but like really, because you're already married, sometimes you think that person might not be on board, but sharing what your goals and dreams are and asking what their goals and dreams are and how do we actively work on them together? You know, that's one of the reasons, like I said, we bought that investment property because my husband's like, you know, I've always wanted to look into real estate because quite honestly, I'm not that interested in real estate, but it's something that he was like, I've always wanted to look. I was like, okay. So I put my energy toward like, let's talk about like, what does that look like? You know, what kind of house should we look for? Like, you know, so like giving him the support that he needs for his goals and dreams. So now he's off and running. We have a friend of ours who's a project manager. So we bought a tax deed property from the city for $10,000. And so, but it needs to be totally gutted and renovated. And so in the beginning, I could tell my husband was a little unsure about like, oh, okay, so us looking and navigating together. And then once we got to a certain point, I could see I was like, bye, babe, I'm out. Cause like I said, I have no interest in.
Right.
So now he works with our friend and they've been renovating the house and getting it together and getting the contractors and going to, I couldn't tell you not that I couldn't tell you what's happening, but I know it's going good. And I look at like, oh, okay, that's good. But you know, sometimes just giving your spouse the support they need to have the confidence to move forward. So he supports me on what I need, which is just like, you know, I don't need anything other than you have the space and the freedom to be Tiffany because I work a lot. And then 2, the support of like, you good. Like when, like yesterday, I did CBS had a documentary that they like CBS News and that they hired me to be the host for about insurance fraud. And so he's over there with his phone watching like, videotaping it, texting people like, you see, you know, that's what I need, you know?
Cheerleader.
And so
right?
like
somebody's just in my corner.
Exactly. So identifying what it is that you need for support, but also identifying what it is that your spouse needs for support and having those conversations so you can support each other. You'd be surprised in doing so how they might be more open to trying something new.
Man, I love it. That's a nugget right there in itself.
Hey, what's up, Dream Builder? Have you been getting any value out of this episode? Would you like to get more exclusive content just like this delivered right to your inbox? If so, head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com and you can sign up for the email list, and that will give you access to exclusive content and more interviews just like this that's going to be delivered only to our tribe. So head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com. Let's get back to it.
Let me ask, how do you keep the balance? Because you said I work a lot. Your husband's obviously, he's got a set schedule. Maybe it sounds like he's got a set schedule. Mm-hmm. How do you keep balance? Because for a lot of people, especially right now, if they're now in a new environment where now they're having to work from home and their kids can just come in the room, especially if they're a woman, like everyone needs mom, right? Mm-hmm. Mom. So how do you keep the balance? Do you think that there is a such thing as balance?
No, because I don't. I struggle with it. I mean, to this day, yes, I don't believe in balance. I believe in harmony. And so balance is when things are in equal measure, right? Ain't no such thing. Like everything is weighed in equal measure. Oh, same as family. No, harmony is when things collectively work together for the greater good. So there are moments when I don't have to so I keep, for example, I don't work on Fridays.
Okay. I
keep my Wednesdays light. And I keep my Mondays semi-lightish, but really Wednesdays and Fridays I keep super light. And then typically I don't have to work on the weekends, and especially now we're not, because weekends would be for travel if I was speaking somewhere or whatever, but that's not happening now. So during those moments are when I lean in. So I lean in heavily when I don't have to be the budgetnista, because I know I have to lean in heavily when I do have to be the budgetnista. Like just yesterday, I called my sister. She's got two little ones, Amelia, who's 3, and Roman 4, going on 5, going on 100. And she was like, I was like, oh, I haven't seen the kids in a while. She said, what time you want to drop them off? Because she was like, I'm tired.
Right?
so what? And I'm thinking an hour, 6 hours later, I'm like, you ain't coming to get these kids? But it was like yesterday, I was Auntie Tiffany. That's it. Because you already know, if you have little ones, you open that computer, it's our computer now. Right. My niece took my phone, promptly put in my code and typed YouTube Kids. It was like, girl, this belongs to me now. I saw her, a text came in. She had the nerve to swipe it up. Like, girl, bye. This is Yes. So that's really the key, is that's what I found for me, is that and I tell this to my team too, I was like, if we're not launching, stop being in launch mode. So meaning that when we're launching a new product or service, it's all hands on deck. It's weekends, it's nights, it's da-da-da-da. Usually it's a few weeks of that. And then afterwards, really teaching them, we don't have to continue that same energy. We're not launching. Pull back, woosah. So when I'm not budgetnista-ing, why am I in budgetnista mode? If it's niece and nephew time, it's niece and nephew time. Right. So I need to put all those other things away and just be full-fledged in here, because I give a lot to the budgetnista. I ought to give a lot to the things that also mean more to me there. So working in things in harmony, I'm not, I try my best. I mean, I'm always, and also checking in with the people around you. Am I being a good friend? I'll ask my husband, is there, I'm sometimes I feel guilty. I'm like, I know I haven't been a good wife this week. He's like, no, babe, I know you've been busy. I'm like, no, well, let's do something on Friday. Let's make it Friday is move. You know what I mean? Because I want you having those conversations about checking in, when's the last time I reached out to my parents? Let me make sure that they're good. And even asking my best friend, have I been a good friend? Have I been here? Is there something you need? So and try not to be so hard on yourself. Sometimes I can be hard on myself, but try not to be so hard on yourself. Instead of being hard on myself, how can I be better? How can I show up? Because also I want to teach my team that work is not the most important thing. I always tell them that the most important thing is family. The second most important thing is family. The third most important thing is family. So if anything, my admin called today, she's on the phone hello. And I'm like, because we have a call every morning. I'm like, are you all right, Ebony? She was like, oh, I had food poisoning last night. I'm like, ma'am, why are you on this call?
Right.
The emails. I said, click. And I said, check your Slack. I'm going to give you, because my mom was a nurse. I'm going to give you a list of the things that your husband needs to get for you. You need clear broth soup. You need this, you this, that. And I was like, I don't want to hear from you today. I don't want to hear from you even tomorrow. But you, as a CEO, I have to enforce that I'm not just talking about family and your health and your happiness is most important. I have to be about it too. It's not that serious.
Right.
You know?
The harmony. I gotta definitely use that and remember that, right? There's no such thing as balance, but when things work in harmony together, because we look at it even when you have a spouse and they're like, man, you guys are so opposite, right? But opposites attract, as we all know. Sometimes that's what a lot of people say, but how do you make that marriage work? How do you make that relationship work? It's probably not because of balance, because two different mindsets, two different sets of emotions. But if you could figure out a way to work together and work in harmony, that's everything. And I think with business, a lot of the times that's as well. If you're not the analytical person, right? If you're not that person, but you hire a CFO who only wants to talk numbers, it's very hard to balance that out. It's got to be harmony of there's give and takes in everything. So thank you for dropping that knowledge bomb. The last thing that I want to know is, for you, as you've built this business, how much of this has been that you've been proactive as opposed to reactive? And what do I mean by that? So in proactive, in the world that we live in today, a lot of people want to build businesses. They want to get their brand out there. They want to get their name out there. And it's become a pay-to-play world. Are you somebody who you are pro pay to play, as in Facebook ads and doing all these things where you're going to be proactive on it? Or are you somebody that you've just put in more of the organic work and you've let it all come to you, like, again, CBS or Forbes, Entrepreneur, whatever it is, and then you've just taken on that?
So I would say right now we're 50-50 proactive, reactive. But in the very beginning, I would say the first 5 years was totally reactive. Like I didn't even know what ads were. I didn't even know they were a thing back then when I first started. You know, I didn't know. I knew how to organically market, you know, doing like posts and engaging folks and things like that. But like the Literature Challenge, the 10,000 people that signed up that first year was 2015. It was all organic. It was just social posts, me telling a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. I didn't even know, like I said, I didn't know anything about affiliate links. I didn't know anything about any of those things. It was just, I was 100% organic business. Yeah. And then my business partner came on, and he's a digital marketing like genius. So he started to bring in that component that I had no idea about. And he was like, Tiffany, you don't worry about it. I will do this. You continue to have this organic connection with people, and you do that. My job is to amplify who you already are, is to say, hey, if you only knew Tiffany, you would love her. So my job is to make sure more people see you, not for you to be different in any way. So it's literally such a great marriage in that I am the same Tiffany from 10 years ago. Someone was just telling me that. They're like, girl, you the same daggone Tiffany from 10 years ago. I'm like, well, who else would I be? Right. But because I myself, and his role is to make sure more people see who I already am. You know, so I haven't changed the messaging. I haven't changed the way that really I speak, except maybe I'm actually probably like more loose now because I probably was more nervous in the beginning. But like I get to be fully me, someone who deeply cares, someone who's here to help women live better lives, someone who's here to affect change positively. I am a teacher. I'm the same Tiffany. It's just that my voice is amplified more. So I think that they both play a huge role. I think that you can't amplify a dead message, you know? And so if I wasn't me, you know, if I wasn't showing up the way I show up, then all the marketing in the world, he would successfully market a bad product. You don't want that. Because he's an amazing marketer. He would be amazing at marketing something that doesn't work. You ever see people, the comments under people's posts, and they're like, you know, it's like, I never got my dress, or, you know, the such and such doesn't work. Oh my God, you don't want that. Like if you look under our posts, we don't really get that. We don't get that negative feedback because we are successfully marketing something that is good. You know, I put my name behind everything.
I love it. Now there's somebody out there that's wondering, girl, where can I find one of him? What would you say? How would someone find that person if they feel like, listen, I don't know anything about ads, but I have a great message. How can I find that person that can help me amplify my voice, my message, and who I am, but not change who I am?
So, well, first and foremost, before you even find yourself a Jabril, you need to find yourself, you know? So meaning that, are you clear about your messaging? You know, like, so you have to learn to market yourself. Every business owner should know how to market. You have to, meaning that, so I want you to get good at organically marketing, because when he came on board, it was like, oh, Tiffany, you already write great copy, you know your audience, you know your messaging. It's just, I'm putting money behind it. And then we tweak to get better. So it's almost like when people say they want to hire a publicist, I'm like, you don't need no publicist. You should be able to pitch yourself, because then it's just so much more easier later when you are ready for a publicist to be able to have someone come in and to amplify more what you're already doing. So, because people are wanting to, like, I get it. When people ask for that, like, oh, I wish I had a Jabril. No, what you're saying is, I wish I had an easy way out. So what happens if something happens to Jabril? Then what happens to the business? If that's the only way that people have come to know and see me, and I don't attract people in any other way. You don't want to lean on, this is the only way. There is a strong organic component to what we do as well. You want to make sure that's happening there. So before you look for that marketing person, make sure that you are mastering your messaging and your organic marketing. And then, there are marketing companies that are, honestly, I would probably look on, Facebook has amazing, like, affinity groups, basically, right? So joining like digital marketing groups and vetting for that, or even if you are in, like, there are groups for like Black women entrepreneurs, Black men entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs in general, teacher entrepreneurs. So joining those groups and asking, who are you guys using? So that's, that's a place to look too. But like, first and foremost, you want to have a strong foundation, like, so no one can rock and sock you. Like, so many people I know built their brand, what I call from the top down, meaning they've got connection with like the CNNs, the CBS, the all of those people. And then as a result, people know them. But what happens when CNN ain't messing with you no more? What happened when CBS is on to the next one and your name was no longer spoken on that? So I remember when I was building my business, I wanted a business that no one could take from me. Because I was like, I didn't want to go back to preschool teacher Tiffany when they could take to school, right? I said, we're not doing that. So instead, my business is built on Tamara, Karen, Logan, meaning each individual woman. So it's like 10,000, then 20, then for, like, now we've got well over 1 million women that follow the brand. And so there's not one entity that can take away what's been built, There's something strong in that. So if a brand, like right now, I'm not working with that. Like, I typically don't work with a ton of brands because most of them are crap, quite honestly. And so there's no brand, there's no TV show, there's no media outlet that could say like, oh, we're not working with Tiffany anymore. Okay, bye, girl. My business stands the same. We're still an 8-figure year business. We don't need them. Honestly, I work with next to none. Like, I know friends of mine who make 7 figures working with brands. So there's nothing wrong with that. But the worry is, what if the brand doesn't want to work with you? I'm not worried about it, because my income comes directly from the people that we serve. There is no middleman. And so like, just being mindful of not being in such a rush to grow that you grow in a way that's not stable for you. So creating a foundation that no one can take from you, because it's a foundation you've built with your direct audience. I think that's critically important.
Oh, absolutely. And would you say another critical component of it is the email list? Like for you, would you say that was a critical component of building such a massive list to where then you were able to put out your offers, or was it not that? Was it really just the connection?
So in the beginning, I used to collect emails, but I didn't know what to do with them. I was like, I heard people talking about email lists. I'm like, I guess, right? So It wasn't until maybe like 6 years in that started to lean into the list. So yes, the email list is definitely important, but who cares about your email list if no one's opening your emails, right? So like, you can have 1 million people on your email list. Our email list open rate is 3 times the industry standards for finance. Our click-through rate is 4 times the industry standard for finance. Why? Because we built a connection out here. So when you see my email, you're like, oh, that's my girl Tiffany. What's she talking about? You see what I mean? So it all works. See that harmony? So people want to lean into, so if you're looking for I call it the gotcha, the gimmicky scheme, like, ooh, okay, I got to get my email and I got to, you're going to get what you get, which is not much. So like, but if you are looking at a cohesive way to connect with your audience, it all works congruently together. Like the email, the social posts mean that you're going to open the email. The email list means that you're going to use the products and service I suggest. The products and service are so good means that when I suggest that someone else's product and service, you're going to use that as well. Do you see what I mean? I have literally done things with the team where other companies have come to me. Like, so there are other like brands that come to me. Maybe they have like a stock course or whatever, like my friend, right? And we have I'm like, okay, my audience trusts me so much because in 10 years, I have really vetted to make sure I only give what's of value, and that I can do a live a few emails, and a closing live. And in 3 days, we have made $250,000 in 3 days. Literally built somebody a 6-figure business in a weekend. Right? So that doesn't just come from, oh, that's your email. No. That comes from relationship. That comes from years of pouring in. I was telling so I have chapters. So Dreamcatchers are my tribe. It's like 1 million women worldwide. We have Dreamcatcher chapters in different states, right? And so the chapter leaders, we had our first national leadership conference meeting yesterday. And I was telling them, I was asking them, because I believe in servant leadership. What do you want? What do you need? I said, I have this unique ability to connect with people in a way that's real, that when I ask for something, I have yet to receive a no, when it's on behalf of y'all. Meaning I have asked people who have $10,000 programs, $1,500 program, whatever, to do something specifically for Dreamcatchers, either for free or at next to no cost. And I have yet to receive a no. And it's easy to say, well, that's because you're the Budgetnista now. No. From the very beginning till now. I'm talking about when I first started. And I was trying to ask myself, why is that? I asked a friend of mine who has this huge Black girl therapy brand if she could come and teach a free class to my audience. I actually asked 2 of my friends. And I thought to myself, why? These women, they have since then built audiences huge. And, and I'm like, she was like, oh, I'll do it. Because I was like, do you know anybody? She's like, no, Tiffany, I'm going to do this for you. And I was thinking to myself, why would she do this for me? And then I remember 6 years ago, when she was first starting and she had her first in-person kind of mini conference, and she asked me to speak, and I showed up. I stayed late, I came early. And I thought about my other friend, same thing. Before I even knew her, she asked me to come. It was 6 people in the room, and I was one of the 6 speaking. This is when the Budgetnista was kind of bumping then, but I showed up. And I think to myself over and over and over again, how many seeds like that I have planted? You know how many people I've hit behind the scenes, or they've hit me behind the scenes, and I'm like, girl, just call me. I don't even know them. And I will pour. Even before we got on this phone right now, every once a week I have I have 2 leadership calls with my lead team. But on Mondays we do something called our mental health check-in, where we check in with each other. And a friend of mine is struggling with her team, and she was like, I'd love to pick your brain. And I was like, what? I'll do even better. Join our leadership call so you can see how we interact. And all of those are the team leads, our COO, our CFO, our managers, all. And so you can hear from different folks how they work through leadership. Right. But do you understand? So here she is. She asked me for this. She asked me for a dime. I'm giving you $1. So then 3 years from now, when I'm like, hey girl, can you do me? Yes. Why didn't you even tell you what I want? Yes. Well, girl, you see what I mean? Right. Are you planting those seeds, and not planting those seeds for return on investment, but planting for planting's sake? That's why I don't get no no's, because and also too, people want to be of service to people as well. Sometimes people don't have an outlet for that. So when I ask people to come in service to my community, they're like, yes. And then I'll turn around and be like, oh, and by the way, I can also, you want 6 figures this month? Boom. Because you have an excellent, people ask all the time, oh, Tiffany, I would love to partner with you. Well, what are you bringing to the table? Right. Partner, are you saying you want to partner with me, or, hey, Tiffany, can you make me some money? Because I'm not foolish. Come on now. Right. Now, if you want to really be of service, girl, serve. Oh, that's not what you want. Okay, no, I don't do that. People ask all the time. And here's the thing, we get a commission. So I could be doing it every weekend. And I'm like, no, not a fit. Are you going to treat Dreamcatchers the way I would treat Dreamcatchers? Are you going to pour into them and love on them and make sure they're good? Are you going to over compensate? Are you going to give them 10 times what they paid for? Anyone who I partner with, we have that talk ahead of time. So if you think you're going to do this version for Dreamcatchers and give them a small snippet of what you do for everybody else, think again. So what I need you to do is bring it all. Yeah, but I have this other product, that's $2,000. Okay. But you said you wanted to connect. So I need you to bring it all. And I promise you, many of those Dreamcatchers are going to buy that $2,000 product. And that's exactly what happens. They pay the $25, $30, whatever, to have this Dreamcatcher version of a product or service. And then they go on to invest deeply. I said, why? Because when you pour into people, they pour back. The law of reciprocity states that you holding back, people are people. They can feel you. They can feel you cheating them. Right. And so I just wish more people, I said I'm going to write a book one day and call it Do Good. How do you do good work? How do you help good people? And how do you make good money? And I said I wasn't going to write that book until I got 8 figures, right? And I had an 8-figure a year business, because people would be like, oh, girl, 100. Oh, that's cute because you make $100,000, girl. No, it's okay, well, what happens when you're making $20 million a year? Can I speak on it now? That it is possible to do good work? It certainly is. So, I'm just really passionate about that. If you're going to be about the people that you serve and then figure out how to monetize that service. It's not your audience's problem to figure out how to pay you. That's not on them. Serve, and then you and your team figure out how to monetize. You're not going to be able to monetize everything, and that's okay. Right. You know, love on them, be transparent, be kind. You know, my audience goes up to you. For me, if someone says something negative about me in the comments or under my, when I tell you, it's like the beehive. They're like,
right,
what?
That's what I was thinking of.
What? They're like, not the Budgetnista. That's who you coming for? I'm telling you.
Not
but that's
today.
what happens when, right? But that's what happens when you love, and the person, I didn't know. I wasn't really sure. I never heard of her before, but clearly I'm going to look at her and stuff. You build an audience like that. That's what happens when you love on them. Someone said that to me the other day. They're like, yo, Tiffany, I know if you say it's real. Is this a good service or a product or whatever? I know if you tell me, you're not going to lie to me. Can you imagine like what?
Oh, yeah.
These are people. Yes. So, I mean, I feel like if I owned a bank, I would have 1 million people who deposited money into my bank. If I owned a record, I would have 1 million people that deposited money into my music, because when you build a level of trust with your audience, there's nothing that you can't bring to them, but you want to be mindful and be a good steward of that trust. Yeah, being a good steward of that trust. It is your, to me, yeah. I just don't like when I see people take advantage of the people they serve and, trying to, do that gotcha, like, let me just get my money and be out. You're going to be exposed, and a lot of people are going to lose, including you. You won't be here 5, 10, 20 years from now. I'm not worried about, where we're going to be 20 years from now. Whether I have a show or have this or that, I'm going to be good because dream catchers are good.
I love it. There's somebody out there that wants to know, you've given so much wisdom already. There's somebody out there, though, including myself, that wants to know if you could look back on these last 10 years and you could give yourself, if you had to build it all over again, knowing what you know now with just your wisdom, what's the one piece of advice that you would give yourself to be able to scale even faster than what you have, which is an amazing amount of time, being able to do all of this in really just 7 or 8 years?
I would have learned to lead. I would have learned to lead faster. So in the beginning, it was just me, right? And I should have practiced leadership with interns, with help, because I was doing everything myself. And it took me some time to learn how to be a leader. I was not a good leader in the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing. I had to get, at first, it's a mix between I was giving away too much power and then I was keeping too much power. I didn't know how to lead. And I didn't start practicing leadership until I actually was basically paying people. And it's like, so I would have practiced leadership with interns and mentees and practice that first, to one, identify my leadership style, identify what worked or didn't work, because you have to work and navigate through that. Now, I'm a beast at leadership. I would just have my lead team call and I was listening to them like, oh, yeah. Because listening to them mentor my friend who needed the help with her leadership, just to hear my team and how like confident and strong they were, and how much they felt like listened to and autonomous on the team. And I was like, Tiffany, you did a damn good job, girl. Listen to these women on the call, feeling themselves. Like, no one felt like, well, it was just, no. It was like, yep, Tiffany lets me do what I want to do. And I'm here to be a support to them. And I might interject here and there and be like, well, let's see if we could tweak it this way. But ultimately, I hired you to know, or hired you to figure it out. And I'm always like, look, I'm making it up just like you. Who's been here before? Not me. Right. I tell it to my team all the time. Because they're like, what should we do? But I'm like, girl, your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
And so it loosens up everyone to be like, oh, okay, Tiffany don't know either. No, girl. All I know is our mission. And here's the thing, and we also have the joke too on our team, is that I remember an intern one time, she made a mistake, like with the email. She had like the wrong date or time or something. And she was like crying, and she was like, oh yeah. And I called her and she was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, oh my God, girl, who did you kill? She's like, what? I was like, who did you kill? You can't stay here murdering folks. She was like, what? I was like, girl, you sent out an email. Did you kill somebody? She was like, no. I was like, well, girl, wipe your tears. It's not that serious.
Not that serious.
On my team, they just know I have an expectation of excellence, which means you bring your best. Your best might be a C+. I'm okay with that. I am. It just might be I might not have you working in your genius zone. So you might be a C+ here, but an A+ here. I have an expectation of excellence, and you can expect that if you do right by me, I do better by you. So leadership is the number one thing that I wish I could have, because very little I would change about the journey, because I couldn't be here without the lessons. But I definitely wish I would have practiced my leadership skills earlier on, like, just so I could get a sense of who it would have been a lot less work because I was doing too much. I was overwhelming myself. There was times when I was highly stressed because I was taking on all the things. And if I had practiced leadership, I would know that I could relinquish those things to the people that work for me and work with me.
Absolutely. Is there one thing that you would credit to being able to get better at your leadership skills? Like a lot of people read book Good to Great, things like what would you credit? Was it just a mentor? Or?
No, it was like what happened was I had like a critical person on my team. She was really she was everything. It was like my right hand. And then the relationship soured. I don't know what happened. And I didn't notice. And I don't know the word that I'm thinking for. I outsourced leadership to her. Because I'm someone who was like, I don't want the hard conversations. I just want to do the work. I love teaching. And the girl, you can go ahead and tell everybody what to do. And I didn't realize there were things happening there where the way she was leading wasn't in alignment with the way I wanted people to feel and be treated. It was very much with a heavy hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not how I would do things. But by then I had given her so much power that when I tried to be like, well, I'm okay, it was like, no, girl, basically I'm your boss too. I'm the captain now. And I was like, what happened? I was scared. One time she had me scared of my own company.
Wow. It's like you created a monster.
I was scared to show up. I was scared to push back. I was scared to be like, oh my God, I don't even know people's names on the team. Who that?
Right.
I didn't. So I remember I was so scared. And then she made these like incredible demands. Like, I want this. I want this. I want your company. It was crazy, her demands. And I was like, okay, you're fired. She was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, you can't stay here. And it was basically it was like, see what you're going to do without me. And it was like, what are we going to do? I didn't even know how to log into certain things. But you know what? And so for the first 6 months, we were like, scrambling. I was listening to, there was a podcast with, was it Tim Ferriss it was a podcast about audacious goals. I don't know if he was interviewed on that podcast, but it was a podcast that I listened to where someone was talking about audacious goals. Those were the words. And I remember being like, okay. And I remember the one thing I am good at, and I think every leader should be good at, is that even when it's coming from a source that you don't like or trust or respect, finding the lesson in all the things. The teacher in me can find the lesson in all the things. So it could be someone terrible. And so when my right hand, when I fired her, there were some things that she said that was like, it would be easy to be like, well, everything she says is a lie because look what kind of person she turned out to be. But it wasn't. There were some things that she said that I was like, Tiffany, this is true. Despite all of this, these 3 things are true. She felt there wasn't transparency in pay. She didn't know I was paying her more than me, but how would she know that? Because I never kind of showed her the trajectory of her income. So she thought that she was being cheated, even though I was paying her more than me. So once I showed her that, she was like, oh. So there was not enough transparency in how am I being paid. She felt overworked. There was never this sense of like, I can shut off. So I was like, okay, I can acknowledge that this is right. Because it was just me and her. We were overworking ourselves unnecessarily. And there was a third thing. It was, she didn't feel appreciated. So transparency, work balance, and appreciation. And I said, okay, even though I did appreciate her, but it doesn't matter what I did. That's not how she felt.
Right.
And so those 3 things, I remember I was like, I pulled those 3 things out and I started listening to podcasts. I listened to that one about audacious goals. I started listening to podcasts. I listened to Simon Sinek. He's got this great Start With Why. I actually have his book in my bag. I'm reading it again right now.
Yeah.
It's a great TEDx talk about like, so I was like, okay, now that she's gone, it's because, there are people, not everyone on the team hated her. There were people who loved her. So I'm like, now she's gone. What do I do? Because now people are like, there are people who loved her who barely knew me.
Right.
They're like, so I was like, how do I? So we started with why, like, why did I start this company? The core mission of helping women, especially women of color, and how are we doing that through education, and the what. Here are some components of how it manifests itself. But also too, I created to address the transparency. I created this color grid with the CFO at the time about what color, because I wanted it to be transparent that everyone could kind of see what they should be making, but not know what everybody else was making. So we made a color grid. You knew your color. And so if you were pink and you knew pink was intern and interns were making, $12 an hour, and that's the low tier. But so it's the color that you're on. And then it's also either the beginning of the tier, middle of the tier, the end of the tier. So you can quickly identify, oh, I'm blue. And you knew exactly what blue meant. Blue might mean that you're working on one project on one team. But green is multiple projects on multiple teams. So you're like, oh, if I want to go from blue to green, this is what I have to do. And I also know that if I go to green, I'm going to start in the beginning part of green, which may be, say, $30,000 a year. But then 6 months later, because we give raises at least once a year, typically every 6 months, I could potentially get in the mid-group. But you see, like it gave people this sense of like, oh, but she was right. Of all the other stuff, I was like, okay, so one, we created that chart. It helped significantly. Then two, about this balance, I was like, okay, so we really created like shut-off times and really leaning into making sure you spend time with your family and doing that. So really like creating like, these are our times that were closed. These are times that were open. And also giving people the autonomy of when they wanted to work together versus, because there are some people who are night owls and prefer not to work during the day. So giving people that space and leeway. And then finally, appreciation. So I would say the first year after she left, I would do a spotlight. And we have Slack, which is our internal messaging system. I would do a spotlight on someone and to say why they were so great once a week. Like when after she left, because I wanted them to feel, now they feel the appreciation, but in the beginning, they didn't know me. So I wanted them to feel that appreciation. And now we do that spotlight actually out in the open where I call my team, I name them too. I call them unicorns because I tell them they make magic happen every day. So the Unicorn Squad, I got the Unicorn Squad t-shirts. We took them on an amazing retreat. This was our second one. Last year was our second one. We paid for everything, flight, hotel, food, because everybody on my team works digitally all over around the country.
Right.
Flew them in, but you see that appreciation in real life. And when we're working there, you have to have been with the company at least a year. So when we're working there, there's no work. It's not working. We're going to the pool. We're hanging out. We have a private chef come in and cook all the food. So there's not about work. I mean, they might talk about work a little bit, but that's not what we're here to show you appreciation for this weekend about how amazing you are. But do you see how like it started from like, I don't have money, but we could do a spotlight in Slack.
Right.
To now we have the money to fly folks out. And I even now do Unicorn Spotlight on my social pages because a lot of people on the team have their own personal businesses. And it sounds counterintuitive to showcase a business, even though they work for my business. They go even harder. Like I've had help people make thousands of dollars. Like, hey, Jadalise is a realtor and is a course creator. Hey, she's amazing. Here's her picture. Here's where you can locate her. Here's her email and see. And then, so now when I talk to Jadalise, she's all like, girl, what you need from me? You know?
Right. Because you've given so much value to her and you've helped her establish her own foundation.
Exactly. I always say, I can't want for me and not want for you. You can't, as a CEO and a founder, say, I want wealth. I want a financial foundation. I want happiness. I want time. I can't want that for me and be like, oh no, but Dr. Y'all right here are here to support me to make sure I get what I need. We don't work that way. And people don't work that way. People are not going to go hard for you if it's your dream, your company. This company belongs to everyone who works here. Nobody works for me. They work with me. Right. You know? And so the dream is all of ours and everyone should feel like they have a piece of that dream and they benefit financially and otherwise from that dream. Because if they're not, why should they be here? They should take their gifts and talents elsewhere. I truly believe that it is my role to earn the right to be worthy to work with the people who work with me, to be worthy to work with, to have the audience that I have. I have to earn that right to work. People don't owe it to you to pay you anything. I have to earn the right to serve dream catchers. And if I don't earn the right to do so, they should leave. They should. They should go and be with someone who's going to take care of them. And you, folks who are consumers of things, that's how you should look at people. Are they earning me? They over here talking to me wild and crazy. Like, oh, this raggedy email. Like, you don't clearly care. It's only buy my thing. Then you're not, they ought not to. Are you pouring into me? I teach my dream catchers. If someone is not pouring into you, don't pour into them.
Right.
Don't pour into them. People get mad. Oh, well, other business owners, then do right by people. And you wouldn't have to worry.
Facts.
You wouldn't have to worry. And so, so you could tell I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. I'm sure anybody that's listening or watching right now is, like, I'm a dream catcher. I need to get in there. I love it. It's so dope. One thing that came up while you've been talking, and especially when you talked about what your mission statement is, and there is a video that I've seen, and it's coincidentally you brought up Will Smith because I'm such a huge fan of Will Smith as well. And that's the whole reason why I say, like, I'm going to get him on this podcast, DreamNation, and then I'm going to connect you with him. If you haven't already connected before, mark my words. Right. I'll sow those seeds. Right. He can't be doing movies till he's 70. At some point, he got to slow down a little bit, and he gonna be looking to do some shows.
Exactly.
And I need my name right in there. So one thing, you talked about your mission, you talked about empowering women, right? For a lot of people, they have a mission, they have a lot of talents, but they struggle with, and it's coincidentally that you brought up Tim Ferriss as well, because I seen a Tim Ferriss video just about a week ago, and he talks about, should you be a generalist or should you be a specialist? For you, the Budgetnista, and you just really trying to empower women to go after business, right? But then also talking finances, they can be looked at as kind of having their own lanes, right? Talk to me about, what is your thoughts on a generalist or a specialist? And more specifically, do you feel when somebody starts out to create their tribe, do they have to focus really honing in on a niche, or can they know that I want to empower women or men or entrepreneurs? Is that good enough?
I say it's the difference between being a bush business or a tree business, right? So here's a bush business. Soon as you out the gate, I do this, women, men, kids, money, this, the bush business, right? So here you are, sprout, and you stunt your growth because you're doing all things for all people all the time. Your growth is stunted. So is there some growth? Yes, but you don't grow past, bushes only go but so high.
Yeah.
I say be a tree business. A tree starts with one trunk. This is a specialist. So when I first started, literally, I'm the Budgetnista because that's all I did was budgeting. That's it. Budgeting for women. That was literally it. And so I grew this tree trunk so strong, so thoroughly that eventually from that tree trunk, so this is my tree trunk, now I can branch off to different things. Sky's the limit. So now I can talk about credit. I can talk about debt. I can talk about businesses. I can talk about all these different things because I can branch off from the strongest trunk that I could build. So I believe that you should be a mix of the both, but start off being a specialist, building that tree trunk, building that trust, building that core tribe. My core tribe are Black women. And now, do we have other women that follow? Yes. Do we have men that follow? Yes. I always say, as a teacher, it's not possible for me to want to teach and turn folks away. I don't turn anyone away. Anyone is welcome to come in, but I'm going to say sis. Someone said sis, like it was a dude. He was like, sis, because that is my core tribe. Now, you are free to listen and learn, and I welcome you. Like I said, I do, but I know who I'm speaking to, my core tribe. And so that is my tree trunk. So yeah, starting off as a specialist, and then you can end up being more general. I always think of Nike. Nike was a sneaker. Now there's Nike water, Nike watches, because they built that tree trunk, and you can branch off into anything once you build a tree trunk. And when you told me you had a 2-year-old, like I wrote my first children's book. I'm going to send you, have to give me your address. And so I wrote this little book because I was like, I want a little brown girl to have a book like,
I love it.
Right? So super chocolatey with her little afro, 4C afro. I
love it.
And it teaches what I call pre-financial lessons for kids. It's called Happy Birthday, Molly Moore. And it's her birthday. She gets all these presents and she has to decide what's most important, stuff or family and friends. And so she's going to love it, your 2-year-old.
Yeah, she absolutely.
And so, but do you see how the Budgetnista has a children's book, and still we've sold in the last 2 months, 5,000 copies.
Wow.
Why? Because it is one of the branches on my tree. I couldn't have done that 10 years ago. I could branch off. I could be like, Budgetnista got some water, y'all. Maybe not right now, but give me 5 years. I could probably have water. I could probably have lamps. I could probably have, you see what I mean?
Because you've built such a big enough brand and foundation now.
Yeah. So build that tree trunk. Be a specialist at first, and then you can branch off and be a little bit more general.
I love it. There's somebody out there right now that is inspired by you. There's, I'm sure, hundreds, if not thousands of people that will find this at some point in their life and become a dream catcher and a part of your tribe. But right now, maybe they have that low voice in their head that says they're not smart enough, they're not strong enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. What's the one thing that you say to that person to get them to just take action?
I say, you don't have to figure out the whole way. I live in New Jersey, and I always think to myself, if I had to drive to California and I was waiting for my headlights to shine the whole way, you would just never get started. Because headlights don't shine the whole way. Headlights understand that all they have to worry about, and your car knows, it's the next best step. That's it. So the way headlights work is that you're in a car and it shines 60 feet ahead of you. Right. And then when you close that gap, the next 60 feet is revealed. And that's how it works, is that you're feeling like, I don't know all the things. You're not meant to. You're not supposed to. What do you know? Well, I can Google Will Smith wisdom. Boom. That's it. That's the next best step. Once you Google Will Smith wisdom and watch, the next step will reveal. The next 60 feet in your car will be revealed because he's going to say something that's going to spark a thing. Like, I should go get that book. You're going to read that book. And then something in that book is going to spark a thing and make you say, you know what? I'm going to reach out to my friend who said something. When you're going to reach out to that friend, and that friend is going to give you the key. It's like literally it's like playing a video game where you're collecting the things along the way. You don't need to know all the steps. You're not even supposed to know all the steps. You're supposed to just know the next best step. Sometimes it's a Google search. Sometimes it's watching a YouTube channel. Sometimes it's listening to a podcast. Sometimes it's reading a book. Sometimes it's speaking to a friend. Sometimes it's just thinking. Sometimes it's making a list. So you don't have to know the whole way. You're not meant to have all the resources now. You wouldn't know what to do if Oprah called you right now. What you going to do? Do you have a ring light so you don't look crazy on TV? I got a ring light, but you know when I learned how to get that ring light? I got this ring light 4 years ago. I wasn't ready for Oprah 4 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago, I used to not know how to, I have locks, so I didn't know how to retighten my own edges. I just did OWN. I did this new show on OWN called Fear Not with Ayana Bon.
Yeah.
And imagine doing it forced me to learn how to do my own hair. Because I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have no money to get my hair done. But guess what? My hair was laid on Fear Not with Ayana. You want to know why? Because 10 years ago, I unlocked the cheat code for learning how to do my own locks. But do you see that so many people want to go from door 1 to door 10, but the key you need to open door 10 is at door 3. And the map you need for the journey in door 10 is at door 4. And the person that's going to give you the passcode is at door 6. You try to skip all the steps, you're going to get to door 10 for nothing. Because you're not able to navigate when you get there. You need to go through the steps so you can collect the tools, the resources, and the lessons that you're going to need to be able to maintain the dream that you seek. The work is in the reaping, not the sowing. When someone told me that, I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? She's like, everybody thinks, I got to do the hard work. Oh, I'm sowing the seeds. It's so much hard work. She said, girl, what's harder? Putting a seed in the ground or when that corn actually grows, cutting the corn down, cleaning the corn off, taking the corn back out, what's harder? You know what I mean?
Right,
the work is in
is
in the reaping, not the sowing,
Man.
So you're thinking okay, it's so hard now, but it's not you need these lessons in order to maintain the dream that you seek. The reaping is where the real gangster work is. And so, yeah, just keeping that in mind. What is the next best step? A phone call, a list being made, an email, a podcast, and the next best step will be revealed after that. I promise that every step shows you the next step of the way.
I love it. There it is right there, people. If you have not gotten the inspiration out of this one to just take action, I don't know what else to tell you. This has been everything. For anybody who wants to stay connected with you, we will definitely have links in the show notes. But Where can they find you at?
So I am the Budgetnista on all platforms, thebudgetnista.com. I also have the Budgetnista on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, even TikTok, although I don't TikTok, but you might see me TikTok one day, right? Depending. But and so if you're interested, I do have that online school where there's other finance and finance adjacent experts where we take it to the next level. All my basic stuff is free. Right? So how to budget, how to save, but you might want to learn how to start a business, or you might want to learn how to start a nonprofit, or how to get press, or just really how to invest, retirement, estate planning. And so I started my Live Richer Academy to teach you how to do so. And actually I have a 40% off link for y'all.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we definitely will have that in there.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. So the Budgetnista, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been not only inspirational for me, but like I said, I'm sure thousands of other people, and you've inspired me to really go out there and make sure that I'm living at my best, at my core, and to make sure that I have servant leadership. And to make sure that I have a plan, and to make sure that I'm still dreaming bigger, so then I can make sure that I can catch those dreams one day. So thank you again. And remember, DreamNation, and the dream we trust, but we must take action. Otherwise, it'll only merely be a fantasy. We'll catch you on the next one. That's all we got for this episode. Thank you for sticking around. That truly means a lot to me, and hopefully that means that we delivered massive value on this one. If you haven't already, the way that you could say thank you to myself and the team is just by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review and a rating. That's what iTunes loves to see. That's how we get out there even more. And I would definitely be grateful for it. I know the team would as well. Do me a favor and head on over to DreamNationPodcast.com. That's where you're going to be able to find all of the resources that we talked about in today's episode, as well as more exclusive content. And you'll also be able to sign up to our email list where we have more exclusive content. And we always love to hear the feedback from you all because you're our tribe. So remember, in the dream we trust, we'll see you on the flip side.